Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. And finally, um, we are now up to our first review show of season 2026. I started this podcast in early November. We've reviewed a lot of teams, previewed all the teams. We reviewed all the teams of their 2025 seasons. We've gone back and looked at classic grand finals over the years. We've done a lot on this podcast, but reviewing games over the weekends for me personally is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. Talking about the previous games that had happened, I think it's really necessary if you want to try and tip well or do well in fantasy or whatever. I think really trying to understand where teams are coming from and why they're playing in a certain way, I think is really important if you take your rugby league seriously like I do, and just a genuine big rugby league fan. So this is the first review show. I won't be reviewing the Super League game. I did watch it, but I am only reviewing NRL games on this podcast. Of course, World Club Challenges and anything that involves NRL teams, I will be doing reviews on that. Of course, any international games, any Origin games, I will be reviewing those games as well. But a full Super League game, I will not be reviewing the Leeds Rhinos and the Hull KR game. Obviously, Mike Acevo dominated with 4 tries. And a terrific effort from Leeds. Funny from Hull KR. They beat Brisbane and then they lose. It's been a funny couple of weeks for them. But I'm going to start on the first game between the North Queensland Cowboys and the Newcastle Knights. So here we go. I thought the Cowboys would win this big. So there's my first fuck up in game one. Credit to Newcastle. Credit to the Newcastle Knights. They came out. They played how they needed to play, which I was watching the game thinking they have been coached really well here. Just making sure that my phone isn't overheating. Hang on. Bear with me one sec. I'm going to turn the fan on. Starting to warm up in the centre of excellence. To warm up here in the centre of excellence. So I apologise for that. We're back. Yeah, I felt that picking Fletcher Sharp in the halves was a brave call. I think one of the easiest things to do would have been to put him on the wing to replace either Dominic Young or Greg Marzu. But you've got to give credit to Justin Holbrook. He stuck by his guns and he liked what he saw from Fletcher Sharp in the first trial. And the second trial, they played Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown, and really they offered fuck all in attack. And it was yes, they were against the Bulldogs side in that second week of the trials, but in attack they didn't link up well, they didn't combine well, and at the end of the day, when I previewed the Knights, in my personal opinion, I said that Fletcher Sharp is too good to be on the wing. He's too good to be in the centres. For me, his best position is fullback, but he can't play fullback because Kalen Ponga is currently there at Newcastle at the moment. So in my opinion, I would have had him in the halves. I probably would have had him at 7 and Dylan Brown 6. But the way they played was really smart. I really appreciated watching the way they played. They played in a way in which I looked at the game and thought Fletcher Sharp played 5'8", but he also played fullback. Kalen Ponga played fullback, but he also played halfback. Dylan Brown played halfback, but he also played 5'8". I feel like they continually switched positions, and that spine was so flexible. Phoenix Crossland as well, his kicking game, kicking a 40-20. I can't remember Phoenix Crossland ever kicking a 40-20 in his career. I thought he offered a lot out of attack in that dummy half position. You can tell he's bulked up a lot, Phoenix Crossland, over the preseason. You can tell he's trained really hard. He's had a good off season. The way that the spine were able to work, connect, and deliver in their first game together was absolutely fantastic to watch. It was absolutely brilliant rugby league to watch. I am so proud of the Newcastle Knights. I did not think they would win. And as a rugby league fan, I was so happy to see the spine connect in their first hit out together. Let's not forget, Kalen Ponga did not play in the preseason trials. So it really genuinely was their first game together with Ponga, Fletcher Sharp, Dylan Brown, and Phoenix Crossland together in the spine, and they won. Now, the Cowboys, in my opinion, were really disappointing, but I'll get on the Cowboys in just a sec. Just on Newcastle, they did this without the likes of a couple of front rowers that have left the last couple of years. Daniel Saifidi and Leo Thompson. Now, you look at their forward pack, it's pretty weak. But I thought Trey Mooney really stood up and delivered. Now, I still don't have the Knights doing well this year. I still have them, not doing well at all, even after this game, because it's a long season. It's one game. They've got 23 games left to go. So it's a long, long season. But what you've got to give credit to is the way they started the season. I think, in my opinion, it's really important and it's really underrated how important it is for sides to start the National Rugby League season. And what Newcastle delivered in that game was really good. Trey Mooney stood up. And if they were going to win that game, he had to stand up. And he stood up. I thought Dominic Young had moments of brilliance there. A couple of good touches. I thought Fletcher Sharp, for him to get injured after 25 minutes, you're probably thinking, fuck, he gets injured. Really smart defensive, smart play from the Cowboys to then target him when he was limping. Tom Dearden finds Helam Lukey, smashes through the hole, fending off a wounded and injured Fletcher Sharp. When he came off, within 10 minutes, the Cowboys are now level. It's 12 all. And Newcastle, what that showed is strength of character. When shit does hit the fan, are they going to crumble like they have last year? Well, they didn't show that. They could have easily have done that on the big stage. Millions watching around the world. Many people at the game. But they decided to hang in there, trust in their process, trust in the program, trust within the coach, trust within each other. And they did that, and they did that so well. And as a rugby league fan that really loves the Newcastle Knights, it was absolutely fantastic to see. Really, really proud of the way they performed. Kalen Ponga, for me, was absolutely sensational. He was fantastic. His kicking game was great. I thought Jermaine McEwen had some nice touches there, starting on the edge. Tyson Frizzell, bit of a dumb play with that crusher tackle, but I thought he had a good game as well. So at the end of the day, I thought that, Newcastle, they were by far the better team. They only won by 10 points, I think it was. But let's touch on the Cowboys. Really disappointing from the North Queensland Cowboys. And that fan. For me, the Cowboys, sorry, I'm just moving that fan over. The Cowboys, they were really disappointing. I thought Jake Clifford was pretty poor in this game, and that was really disappointing to see, considering how great he was in the trial games. The first game he started at halfback. Jackson Purdue played 6. Second game, he played at 5'8". So, look, I think Jake Clifford, I think they need to stick with him. I thought his kicking options were poor. His kicking game was poor. His goal kicking was great. To get a few from the sideline, he's a great goal kicker, and he's normally a really good kicker. I just felt like his last tackle options were really, really poor. Wasn't able to put in a lot of players in a position to do anything about it, if that makes sense. So the kicks were quite bland, quite vanilla. They didn't offer much at all. They weren't high enough. They weren't long enough. They just lacked anything, really. I just thought he had a really poor game. Scott Drinkwater, I understand he got injured. Apparently there was something wrong with his rib cartilage or something like that. But he came back on, got needled up, came back on. I thought... I don't want to be too critical, but I thought he was really poor. Like, I was expecting a lot more from Scott Drinkwater out the back. I felt like he didn't offer much in attack. Defensively, I thought he was quite poor. If you think about the first try of the game, Kalen Ponga puts up a bomb, Fletcher Sharp chasing underneath it. Fletcher Sharp jumps up over the top of Scott Drinkwater, who has now been a consistent fullback since 2022. At the Cowboys. And 2021, for the first half of that season, he played at 5'8" alongside Chad Townsend. Then played a bit of fullback towards the back end of that season. But, this is his 5th year now consistently in that fullback role. And I just feel in first grade, and I just feel that he needs to be better than that in those situations. I'm questioning whether or not he's the future fullback of this club. One of the reasons I say that is Jackson Purdue then goes to fullback when Scott Water gets injured, and they score 12 points. And there was so much more spark about their attack. Scott Drinkwater then comes back on. Purdue gets moved back to the centres, and all of a sudden their attack is weak. Their defence crumbles. He's about 28, 29 years old now, Scott Drinkwater, and I'm wondering whether or not, if it doesn't work out with Clifford, and I'm really big on this, I think if you start with a halves combination, you really need to stick with them for at least 10 games. Just give them at least just over a third of, over a third of the regular season to give them that opportunity to click and connect, because it can take a lot of great halves time to do that. As I mentioned on a previous podcast, you look at Cronk and Keary back in 2018. They ended up winning the premiership, back-to-back premiers in 2018, 2019, but it took about 10 games or so for Cronk and Keary to fully connect as a halves combination. They were really, really clunky in that opening stages of the 2018 season. So Clifford deserves at least 10 games, in my opinion. But what do you do with Scott Drinkwater? Well, if it doesn't work, if they continue to lose games, I've got the Cowboys finishing eighth. After watching that game, I can understand why a lot of people thought I was going mad. Um, you know, another option is you could put Drinkwater back at six, Purdue possibly at fullback. So I thought Hillam Lukey was absolutely outstanding in this game. He was so good. And, the way he hit that line was absolutely sensational. The way he targeted Fletcher Sharp, the way he ran at him, barged over the top of him, fended him. He really, for me, I think he'll play Origin for Queensland this year. Honestly, I know that's a bold prediction, but you look at the second rowers they've had over the last few years. They've even put Ruben Cotter, who's known as a lock forward and a prop forward, onto that edge just because he's so good defensively. David Fafita, he hasn't been there for a couple of years now. Billy Slater doesn't look like the way in which he comes in and out of games, which you can totally understand. You need consistent players, but when you're talking about consistent edge forwards in this competition, Hillam Lukey is up there. He was absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, Hillam Lukey, I think, will play Origin this year. He was so good in this game. Really, really good. I just think personally that they were really, really poor. I thought Braden Burns had a couple of nice touches. I'll get onto that high tackle soon. For me, the best player, Tom Dearden, was decent, didn't overly do much, but I'm wondering if he could. I think he did what he could, to be honest. I don't think the forwards laid the platform that they needed to for the halves. I thought, Dearden's kicking game was solid. Didn't break the line, but he did what he needed to do. He conducts the side around really, really well. But if they're not working around him, if they're not adapting to his game plan as well, then that's, you always hear about the Melbourne Storm greats. They always talk about back then how they had to adapt to the way Cooper Cronk played. That's why they were so successful. They didn't have to adapt to how Cameron Smith played or Billy Slater played. They had to evolve their game plan around the way in which Cooper Cronk loved to play his football. And I think the Cowboys can learn plenty of those older Melbourne Storm teams. I really do believe that. And I just think that they need to work around Tom Dearden's strengths and they need to adapt to a game plan on the run, the Cowboys. They need to go from, I feel like if they go into a game with a game plan A, they struggle. If it doesn't work out for them, they have to wait until halftime to really adjust things. But, only the real good teams can go from a game plan A, B, C, D on the run. And I think the Cowboys really needed to do that. To an extent, they did that to an extent because they got 12 points in. But I'm wondering if that game plan was forced. I don't think Jackson Purdue moves to fullback in that final 20 minutes of the first half if it wasn't for the Scott Drinkwater injury. I thought, for me, one of their best players was Griffin Neame. When he came on, he was absolutely sensational. I thought Ruben Cotter was really quiet. I thought he went missing. Purdue, I thought, really good battle, Purdue and Dane Gagai. I thought that was a great battle. That was really, really good to watch. Apart from that, Reid Marnie, one thing about Reid Marnie is he's really creative out of dummy half. I love the way in which he tries to engage the front rowers of hitting the line, fucking putting them through a hole near the goal, near the try line. He does that, and he tried doing that consistently on fourth and last tackle options in this game. He tried to find the front rowers to hit the fucking mark and reach over and score. But the Newcastle defence was too strong at times. And I think they did plenty of work on Reid Marnie in this game. For me personally, I think Reid Marnie will be one of the great buys of the year. I really believe that. But I just think there was some options there where he could have gone out to the halves for them to put in a crossfield kick to either Braden Burns or Murray Talangi. At the end of the day, I think it was a disappointing game from the Cowboys. I expected a lot better from them. I expected them to win this game. I still have them finishing eighth. I'm not going to backflip on that. I mean, you look at the Warriors last year, they got flogged by Canberra and Vegas, and they end up coming sixth or seventh. Sixth, I think they did. Penrith finished seventh. So, it's a good effort there from the Warriors last year. So you can't judge a team based off one game in terms of, well, you can judge a team. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but you can't look at one game and think, all right, that's definitely where they're going to finish bottom four. I'm not saying they're definitely going to make the eight, but in my opinion, I look at that roster: Scott Drinkwater, Jackson Purdue, Murray Talangi, international Queenslander, Tom Dearden, Reid Marnie, grand final hooker, Reuben Cotter, Queensland, Australian player, Jeremiah Nanai, Queenslander, Australian player. You've got so much talent. There's no excuse not to make the eight. You look at that squad, and it is in the top 8 squads of the 17 teams in the competition, without a doubt. Reid Marnie is one of the best hookers in the competition, and I'm really looking forward to that game in round 2 between the Tigers and the Cowboys. Now, I'm pretty sure that's at Leichhardt Oval. That is going to be a fucking phenomenal game. I don't know who I'm going to tip in that game. I really don't. I'm not sure of whether or not that hit out was better for the Cowboys. At least they've got a game off to learn off. The Tigers, by the time they played, they wouldn't have played for at least a few weeks. So, going to be a really good game. I'd love to see the Tigers win that game, but yeah, going to be interesting to see how they go. Look, we'll go to the next game, the Bulldogs and the Dragons. I'll touch on the Dragons. Now, I really disagreed with the comments on NRL 360 last night when I was watching it, a glass of wine in my hand, trying to understand where they were coming from. And they said that Daniel Atkinson they thought that him and Flanagan didn't offer much in that game. Now, I don't think Flanagan overly did. I thought defensively he made some good defensive options on the edge there, but he's a really good defender, Flanagan. I'll give him credit there. I think Atkinson, especially in the first quarter of that match, I thought his kicking game was sensational. His kicking options were fantastic. One of the reasons why the Dragons hung in that game was off the back of Daniel Atkinson's kicking game. Now, he's a halfback where he's not going to be that line break, consistent superstar halfback. And I think we all know that, but he's a good fucking player, Daniel Atkinson. In my opinion, he's a 5'8". Flanagan's more of a halfback. I just think they're playing in the wrong positions. But I thought his kicking game in the first 20, 25 minutes was underappreciated from some of the experts on NRL 360 yesterday. I thought some of his options, his crossfield kicks, the way he kicked to the corner to keep the Bulldogs trapped down there, I thought he was really, really solid. Overall, I thought his second half was quiet. Probably didn't do overly too much. Now, I disagree with a lot of people out there. I've heard some criticism out there regarding his last play option. With 1 minute to go before the actual full time. So 1 minute to go of Golden Point. He's 52 metres away from the line. Now, he can either play it safe in that position and kick to the corner, and they trap the Bulldogs down there, and the game probably most certainly ends up being a draw. So he could have played it safe in that moment. But if I'm a coach or if I'm a player of a new halfback, I want to see him back himself. Now, when he kicked this field goal, it didn't go over. But when he kicked it, when he attempted the field goal, if you have a look again with 1 minute to go, the kick had the height, it had the length, but it didn't have the correct aim. It went to the right-hand side of the posts. Now, this is 52 metres out. It was a fucking beautiful kick. It missed. But I like that he backed himself and went, no, I know I can kick it this far. I can play it safe, but with 1 minute to go in Vegas, we're here to fucking beat these Bulldogs. He kicks it, misses, but the attempt I love. Now, unfortunately for Atkinson, it resulted in a 20-metre tap for the Bulldogs. They then get the penalty with Bronson Sherry, which, in my opinion, was a drop ball. It is what it is. It's happened now. But at the end of the day, I love that he backed himself in that moment. So, yes, it didn't work out for the Dragons in that game. But overall, I think if he backs himself like that under pressure, I reckon the Dragons will win more games than they lose in those sort of games that they played last year. So yes, I know Dragons fans are probably thinking, "Oh fuck, here we go again, another year of losing by a point or two or by a try or losing close games again." I reckon with Daniel Atkinson at halfback, there is a really, really good chance you win plenty of games in either golden point or by 1 or 2 games. I genuinely believe that. I thought his kicking game showed enough where he's backing himself under pressure. Look, I thought, in my opinion, you look at Flanagan and Atkinson in the halves. They're probably the weakest halves combination in the competition at the moment, right? But let's judge them again in 2 months' time. Let's judge them again after round 10, because I reckon there will be games where they will link up well. We probably haven't seen it yet, didn't necessarily see it in the trials. They both have individual brilliance, but once they find a combination, well, if they find a combination that works, I believe that will get the Dragons going a fair way. Now, I did a season preview show last few days, and I had them finishing second last. And after watching that yesterday, I'm thinking, well, I'm probably wrong here. I thought they looked really good at times. I thought defensively they looked really good. And like, I'll get on. Yeah, there was probably a defensive lack of communication when Jacob Preston scored. Lachlan Galvin put him through the line there. Overall, I thought there was that really nice touch and bat back from Jaden Sewer to find Valentine Holmes, who ended up finding Setu too. What a story for that kid, 27 years old, over from the Warriors, making his NRL debut, scoring a try over in Vegas. Absolutely sensational stuff for the young fella. Well, he's 27, still young, I guess. I'm 31. I still feel, no, I was going to say I feel young, but I don't. I feel fucking old. Couple of glasses of wine on Sunday afternoon. I'm in bed by fucking 8 p.m. Oh, mate, the Connor man, where'd you go, mate? Yeah, getting boring, I guess. But no, it was a good game of football, the Dragons and Bulldogs. I thought the Dragons at times, thought Damien Cook was the best player on the field from a losing side. I genuinely think he was the best player on the field regardless. He was absolutely sensational. I thought the Couchman brothers were fantastic. Ryan Couchman, we didn't get to see overly too much of Ryan Couchman last year. I think he got injured back in round 1 or 2. He did his ACL, out for the season. Toby Couchman was out for the second half of the season. We didn't get overly much football to see from those brothers last year, but fuck, they both played really well in this game. I thought Hamish Stewart was really strong. I thought he was really good. And this was a game, too, without Jacob Little off the bench. This was also a game for the Dragons without Dylan Egan, who is, in my opinion, one of the best up-and-coming second rowers of the competition. There is plenty to like about this team. And if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't put them at second last. Valentine Holmes needs to capitalise on those opportunities. A couple of times last year went for the field goal, didn't get it. He needs to capitalise on those opportunities more. He's a great field goal kicker. We've seen that before, but we probably need to see it more consistently with the pay packet he's on at the Dragons. He needs to ice those moments. Let's go over to the Bulldogs now. I thought, look, the people I've spoken to was, oh shit, there's some concerns coming out of the Dogs. Were they disappointing in attack? Yes. Did I think they were going to win by a big margin? Yes. Were they quite poor defensively at times? Maybe. In my opinion, I still think they'll make the grand final. Like, this is round 1. This is the first game that this team has played since September last year when they got belted by Penrith. Overseas, conditions were 28 degrees inside at Allegiant Stadium. For me, I think we all expected more. I thought Burton and Galvin struggled at times as a halves combination. I thought Bailey Hayward, look, he didn't run for many metres. I think he only made 9 metres in this game, 9 running metres. But I thought his service from dummy half was great. He played a full 90 minutes at dummy half. I thought the way, if you look at this play too, on the final play of the game when Stephen Crichton gets the field goal, you look at Bailey Hayward. He looks to his right. He looks 20 metres behind him to his right. And I think it's Connor Tracy who looked in position, or Matt Burton. It was probably Matt Burton who was in position to take a field goal. But then as he looks to his right, he's about to pass it. He looks to his left straight away, passes it straight to the chest of Stephen Crichton. And that left-hand edge defense of the Dragons rushed up on Burton or Connor Tracy, whoever that player was that he looked at. I think it was Matt Burton. But then the fact that he just knew where Crichton was all along. He passed it straight to his chest. That was great ability there from Bailey Hayward. And I haven't heard anyone talk about this. I think that helped create so much space for Stephen Crichton. I understand Stephen Crichton was 20 metres behind the play of the ball, but that was a really, really good, solid option there by Bailey Hayward. I thought Sam Hughes was really strong. He had to stand up in this game. Leo Thompson out for 10 weeks with a bad calf strain. For me, I thought Sam Hughes was really, really good. And, he had an outbreak season in 2024. And he played a bit of consistent football in that year, then got injured, had an injury-riddled season last year. He's 24, 25 years of age, Sam Hughes, a really underrated front rower. If he can play consistent football this year, I think they'll go a long way into making the finals, Sam Hughes. When Leo Thompson comes back, I'd assume that it'll be Max King and Leo Thompson at front row pairing. And then I think you've got to say Sam Hughes off the bench, probably over Harry Hayes or Josh Curran, probably over Harry Hayes, as Josh Curran can cover lock and second row as well as front row. So Josh Curran gives you that versatility. I thought Canterbury, they won. And that's what they needed to do. They needed to go to Vegas and win. And win. They were heavy favourites, and they did just that. I thought Burton at times and Galvin, they just didn't really connect as much as I wanted to see. Stephen Crichton was sensational. There's a lot of talk about what are they going to do in this game, like down the track. Are they going to move Stephen Crichton back to fullback? In my personal opinion, if you're going to move anyone back to fullback, it's Matt Burton. Because it is so underrated how hard it is to defend at either wing or centre. And Stephen Crichton won a premiership in 2021 on the wing. And then he moved to the centres, won a premiership in 22 and 23 in the centres. Scored a try in every grand final from 2020, 21, 22, 23. 4 years in a row, scored a try in every grand final. Now, his defence on the edge is the best defense I've seen from a centre in many, many years. I'm going to say in over a decade. He's the best defensive centre I think I've ever seen. Period. I know it's a big call, but I'm willing to make it. Like, he is so good. And if you take Stephen Crichton out of that position, then you do miss that defensive protection on that edge. So in my opinion, he's a centre. He has to stay there. And I think you probably move Matt Burton to fullback if it doesn't work out. If Mitchell Woods ends up coming in playing halfback, Galvin to 5'8", at the end of the day, they won. They didn't win how I thought they'd win. They were very disappointing at times, but at the end of the day, they won. Controversial decisions, but they got the 2 points. They got the job done in the end. So they got the week off this weekend coming, and then they're playing the following weekend. I just think they have some family time for a few days, just have a break from Vegas, recharge, and then get back into it and really reassess where they went wrong at certain players. At times, I thought they were their own worst enemy. At times, I really appreciated the way in which they didn't kick it on the last tackle. They do that more than any other team, in my opinion. They don't feel rushed or forced to make a kick on the last tackle. With the goal line dropout rule now, how you can drop kick it if it goes out on the full, it's just to play the ball. I don't think it matters. You don't have to try and force a goal line dropout. And I think the Bulldogs are aware of that. Sometimes it's better to just being tackled on the last 5 metres out is as good as a halfback putting a kick to the corner and trapping them down there. It gives the defence an option to really defend and keep a team down in the corner there. I thought the Bulldogs were disappointing, but they got the job done. Now, I'll just talk on the controversial moments. Braden Burns, he did the high tackle. For me, it was a sin bin. For me, fair enough. Contact to the head, forceful. It could have gone either way. Sin bin, I was happy with that. Stephen Crichton wasn't a send-off in my opinion, but that's a sin bin. That's a sin bin. Like, and he should be suspended. And if I'm a Cowboys fan and I see that, then I'm pretty fucking pissed off, to be honest. Like, you need, you know, I don't want to sit here on this podcast to say that Stephen Crichton is a protected species and whatnot, but like there needs to be consistency. I think as rugby league fans, we don't expect the refs to be perfect all the time. They're human; they're going to make mistakes, but I think there needs to be an expectation of consistency. I think that's all we ask, and when there's not that, it gets very frustrating, especially early on in the season. Like, come on, we've had fucking time to prepare, time to get consistent. So they need to get those calls right. The fact that Stephen Crichton walked out of that game without a charge is not okay. It's not all right. There needs to be consistency. Braden Burns ending up getting 2 weeks. That's a worry. I'll quickly also touch on Fletcher Sharp's injury. Apparently nothing too serious. When I saw him go down, I looked at my wife and I thought, oh God, I remember doing my ACL, and the way he went down reminded of me of when I did mine. When no one touched it, he just stepped and his knee went. And I was really worried for him at one point. But when he was limping and he looked all right. He looked disappointed he wasn't going to get back out there, but it was told to him pretty early on that it's nothing overly too serious. So he's expected to miss around 3 to 4 weeks at this stage, apparently. So really, really looking forward to the games coming this weekend. Of course, in a couple of hours on the NRL app and website, the team lists will drop. You'll see that all across social media, I'm sure, of the NRL pages and whatnot. I will be going through the team lists for round one for the final 6 games of the round one this season. I'll be doing that tomorrow, going through the team lists, analysing certain players and certain selections in certain positions. So that's the way it'll roll. So I'll be reviewing games on Tuesday, going through the team lists every Wednesday, Thursday, previewing the upcoming rounds of the season. So that's the way it's going to roll in season 2025. And then, of course, in the off season, I'll be reviewing classic grand finals, doing a season preview of each review of each club, season previews for 2027 and all that. So it'll just keep going on. So if you're liking what you're hearing, if you're liking what you're seeing, please subscribe on the YouTube channel and follow me on Spotify. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and I am going to have my hot chocolate now. It's been sitting here and I haven't had a sip yet. So here we go. Fucking cold now, so it's great. Make myself another one. Thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.